Hello and welcome. I'm Sarah Daly and I'm delighted to join Prosper on the Online Prosperity Show. In today's episode, we're exploring the blending of business consulting and executive coaching, particularly around working with business owners and directors who find themselves at a pivotal crossroads, whether to decide to step up and through growth or merger, or to step out by selling or retiring. These moments actually define the future of a business and its leadership. Looking forward to giving you insights, strategies, and real life experiences that will support leaders. Thank you.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, the number one place where we uncover powerful ideas, stories, and strategies that help you build a profitable and purposeful business. I'm your host, Prosper Tarovinga. And if you've ever felt that maybe money and meaning are not playing well together in your current business, or that maybe your numbers are holding you hostage instead of giving you freedom, well, today is that episode that could change that for you. Because joining us is Sarah Daly, a business mentor, strategist, and accountant who helps purpose-led entrepreneurs turn financial confusion into clarity, and also turning that chaos that you're experiencing into calm. Now, Sarah, Tiagwich.
Diagwit. Kunna Saviltu.
I knew I was going to get you on that one because you were not expecting that one, were you?
I most certainly wasn't. And thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. I absolutely love this. Yes, we've been having a bit of a chat before, and that's the reason why I asked you if you speak a bit of Gaelic, because that's a little bit that I know. So I saved that for our conversation. All right. So for those that are tuning in, I mean, obviously, like we've mentioned, Sarah is that business mentor and strategist that really is out to give you the expert guidance you might need, especially when it comes to your business there. Now, there's something that I love about our guest today. Apparently, she actually failed her MEDS examination in high school, and still she went on to become an accountant. So if that's proof that your past doesn't define your future, I don't know what else is. And we're going to be talking in terms of that and how, that could be the guiding light to your either exit strategy or how you're going to be running your business. And before we dive in, for those that are tuning in for the very first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode filled with insights like these ones. Now, Sarah, I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified to talk about. Let's maybe start off with that MET story. How did you failing that exam lead you into a career that's actually built around numbers?
Well, maths was my favorite subject in school. I actually just went into the exam and froze. And I remember the invigilator coming down to help me write my name on the top of the page. I just froze, just couldn't do it. Just put myself under so much stress. I was like, can't do it. So I had no, and in Ireland, if you fail your maths, you fail your exams. So I went and I repeated them, and of course got the 100%. And I've always wanted to go into business. And in my local town, there was a university, or it's I don't know, they've new names on colleges nowadays. There was a college in my hometown, and I went to that and had business and accounting. So I wanted to stay home and work as well as go to college. So I went, as I said to you earlier, when there's a will, there's a way. And I loved figures. So that's what I did.
Oh my word. And obviously there's a lot that happens, especially when it comes to that examination. I don't know if it's the same in Ireland. You learning for 4 years and you have to do the examination in 40 minutes. And it's just so much stress that piles up on that one particular person. But since you said you loved mathematics and that would have meant you were a very good student, what was the aspiration that you wanted to be after school?
I didn't really think about that until I got to university. And when I
Right.
got to university, that's when I was like, I want to become an accountant. And it just intrigued me, but intrigued me because I suppose my parents were self-employed and business intrigued me. So business and accounting, it just drew me to it, to be quite honest with you, because after doing my degree, I did a master's in entrepreneurship management. I just I was always craving more information regarding businesses, what information, data is proper information, you know, working with others. You don't have to just have your own business, you can collaborate with other businesses. And I think I was very lucky with throughout my career working with different companies and then working with an amazing accountant back home in Tralee, where he really introduced clients to each other to go for grants or to go for, jobs and stuff like that together as a team. And it just showed me a different world altogether, that you're not on your own. You can actually collaborate with other businesses on a particular project.
I like that because this whole world of business, it's usually sold to everyone as a zero-sum game. If somebody wins something, that means you're losing, and if if the opposite is like that, which then leads a lot of entrepreneurs to be very stressed when it comes to either looking at their money or their P&L statements and things of that nature. What do you think actually causes the fear of numbers in business owners?
I'm going to start with a lot of successful business people know their business, may not know the numbers, but they know. They know this is roughly the cost, and they know the margin, and they know thing, and they're really good. They go with the gut feeling. But then there comes a time that you have to start looking, the environment, market is changing, there could be a recession coming along. Then all of a sudden you have to start really digging into the figures of it. And I ended up getting to work with a particular tech company, and I was in there and I was like, decided to dig a bit deeper. And I realized that people were, for example, we're all, testing out subscriptions, but you had to put in your card. And then all of a sudden, it was constantly going. So I said, out of curiosity, put an email out to all the staff going, who's using what subscriptions? 75,000 was saved that year just by that one email, because people didn't realize that we're signing up to subscriptions, weren't using them again, but never cancelled them. So these are the small little things that could have a large impact on a business. And then I realized that, people were just going, okay, that's great. We look at, are we making a profit? Fantastic. But they weren't really digging into, why aren't we making a larger profit? What's the industry margin? Should we be looking at this? And that's where I started, being curious, going into the accounts. But then it showed me the mindset of the business owners. They were good at what they did. And the more I started researching, I realized that business owners hired accountants for a particular reason. That was their responsibility. But they forgot that they need to have a monthly meeting to have a discussion on the accounts. So these are the little things that you should be doing, having the conversation with your accountant a couple of times a year. They'll be able to direct you on what's going on if you're not fully financially literate. You can still run a business, but I would be advising people to sort of looking at into their numbers, but have someone with you, have that mentor, have that accountant, have that bookkeeper, come in and explain it to you. That's how I feel about it.
Now, Sarah, when we started the conversation, we were joking about you freezing, and in the sight of you having to do a math examination. And
Yes.
that is actually a metaphor of what other entrepreneurs are actually experiencing, because when they are running their business, they just love the thrill of people buying what they've created or people interacting with what they've created. But when it comes to actually facing the numbers and everything else, they freeze. They don't want to be looking at or talking to the accountant, because the accountant reminds them of what they're supposed to be facing. And That
Yes,
is, yeah.
unfortunately, yes. And I just love it. That's the problem. I love it.
So you help people to align profit with purpose, right?
Yes.
What does that actually look like in practice?
So by the time someone comes to me or has a conversation with me, usually they're debating what's the next step in my life and my business. So I don't know where to go from here. I've worked in it for 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 years in the business. I'm not sure if I want to stay on or not stay on. So usually they're either burnt out or they're being attracted to something else, a different type of business or a different type of lifestyle. So we have that conversation. So I blend business consulting and executive coaching to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes. Because even whether they're at a crossroads or not, I'm finding that something has triggered this conversation. What is it? And often it's really deep. It's something's after happening in the family, or they're realizing other friends are retiring. There's something. So it's to figure out that first. And then you go, right, let's look at your options and let's look at the business as a whole, and can it sustain each of the options? So, like, are you ready to merge and work on? Because maybe that is after the conversation they're like going, actually no, I'd like to keep, maybe I just need a confidence, maybe I just need someone to talk to, and we might take that step and prep the business for a merger. And then they're not on their own anymore and they've got someone else working in the business. Or else someone might be going, I'm at that age but I don't have kids that want to take over the business. What can I do? So again, I have one gentleman who 3 years ago came to me, had a conversation, and the decision was he decided to merge his business with a complementary business with the intention of retiring in 5 years. So it was very open that they were going to merge because of his relationship with the clients. He couldn't just walk away from the business. So they merged, and now it's 3.5 years on. He's going to be retiring at the end of this year. So it's before he decides, the 5 years are up, but it was intentional. So it was intentional for him to make sure the business continued on because he'd put 30 years into it. But it was also intentional that, okay, now I can hand it over to somebody else. I can start reducing my hours. I need to find a hobby. What else am I interested in? So he's now planning to do a bit of traveling, but he's still doing mentoring. He's still being a mentor. So he's never going to stop working, but he's going to reduce his hours working and maybe the direction that he's working in, more in helping other businesses through different, stages of their business. So that just gives you an idea of when someone comes, you have to really find out about the person and about the business, because that person who owns that business has a massive impact on that business and the decisions going forward in it and the teams within it.
Absolutely, because they're the one that had the vision. They're the one that actually started the business, and half of the time these businesses are named after the proprietor, which
Yes.
then means pretty much if they let that go, that's literally their identity that goes away with them signing that paper. And I think that's a lot for a lot of people, because they, when, like you say, 30 years, if somebody has built something for 30 years, that's like their whole life. And
it's their whole life, and it's the culture in the business. And even merging or selling, you have to know the culture of your business, but also understand the culture of the business that you may end up selling to or merging with, because you don't want to lose your staff, because the staff is sometimes the backbone of the business because of the relationships and how things are processed. So there's a lot, just more than just the figures and the person and the culture. It's one ecosystem that you have to mind to transition over. But the leader needs to be confident in the decisions they're making.
Now, Sarah, I don't know, maybe it's a whole different, scenario, but some accountants are just visible when you have to, load your taxes, and when some sort of government legislation has just changed and they're just reminding you of that, and it's just compliance. But was there a moment in your career when you realized that just chasing numbers wasn't enough, that there had to be a lot more meaning behind the money? Because, some people don't go all the way like you are.
I had the privilege of working in a company, accountancy practice down in my hometown in Tralee. And he was extraordinary because he said the numbers are all one thing, but what's behind the numbers it's people. And he said, these numbers are well and good, but the people are the making of it, and it's relationships. And I remember there was a project coming up, but two of our clients were too small to go for the project. But if the clients came together as in a partnership for this project, there was a possibility. So he introduced them. And the relationship that built from there, all of a sudden you had two businesses come together as a partnership. And then 2 years later, they merged together and they've built their business. But it was just extraordinary that there is more than just the numbers. There is the people behind it. There is the human connection. There is sitting down and seeing the whites of a person's eyes and having a conversation. But all businesses are built with conversations. Even my last business, before I became a coach, it was meeting people and having the conversation. And all those conversations about their businesses all stemmed from something that happened to them personally. That's why they're in the business. So it's really extraordinary that numbers are well and good, but behind those numbers is a human being.
And those numbers will actually start telling a story, but also,
Yes.
you know, that then builds the whole thing together.
Yes.
But, you know, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and half of them, they just want their business to run. They want to see the, you know, the clients coming in, the website likes and everything else, you know what I mean? And a lot of them, when we maybe try to discuss numbers, a lot of them are always saying, I'm not a numbers person. Just tell me what's working and where we are with everything else. What would you say to somebody who believes that story about themselves?
I think if you have a good accountant or bookkeeper, they actually can create a story for you and explain it in your language. And that's really important. A good accountant bookkeeper will explain it in your language using your tools. So an engineer would be very different to a doctor, to, you know, a dietitian. You have to explain it using their terminology and dumb it down. And there's no problem dumbing it down. It's just that, you know, something's happening. What's happening that, you know, there was a dip during these seasons. I'll give you a really good example. An interior designer used to always go on skiing trip in February, every year without fail, and hates knowing about the numbers. But then all of a sudden, something happened in her personal life and she couldn't go skiing that year. All of a sudden, that year was one of her busiest years. So we actually said, okay, why? Why was this the busiest year, was the question she asked me. And I was like, let's sit down and have a look. So we looked at the previous years and I was like, what happened in February? And she said, oh, I couldn't go on skiing trip. Something happened personally. And I said, yeah, but look at all the calls you've come in. Look at all the queries that come in. Look at all the deposits in February that came in. February must be a very important month. Can you move your skiing trip to some other month? So she did. So it was bringing it down to, you know, why are you getting all these deposits? Asking the questions, getting curious. And then all of a sudden she was like going, okay, I need to move my skiing trip. And to this day, she's really successful because she moved her skiing trip. But it's just such a small thing, but it's because of being curious about the questions of what happened that month compared to other years. There was your answer. So now she understands that for me to be successful, I have to move my skiing trip, and away we go. So there you go. That's just a small little client story for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but didn't she realize that before, or was that also just maybe an escape on her part that, oh, I don't want this busyness. Let me go somewhere else. And because you never know, unconsciously, some people might actually elect to not want to be around, especially when it seems like there's a lot to do.
I think there's this theory, or I don't know what word you put on it, that, you know, people are paying off their credit cards in February. They won't have any money, you know, after Christmas. And, you know, that was the mentality. And then she was, you know, so when we got talking, and then she was, but I put ads in and I didn't think they'd be busy, and the best time to do things is during the summer. And I'm like going, well, it just shows you people decide at Christmas, well, you know what, let's do something in January, February. So these are the little things that happen unknowns to people.
Absolutely.
But the figures tell the story.
You're absolutely right, because, you know, when you're obviously right knee deep in the whole thing, you might not actually notice. You might just think, oh, it's always been like that. But if you take a bird's eye view, you'll be able to actually see all the
Yes.
hotspot. Now you've worked with a few purpose-driven, founders, people that have actually gone on and done quite a lot of good in their lives and for those they
Yes.
love. What sort of patterns do you see between those who thrive and financially, obviously, and those that actually struggle? Is there something that you literally can see within that particular person that
Actually, those that that are thriving at some stage in their career, they've hit a block, or they haven't been surviving at some stage. So I think people learn a lot from mistakes and move from them. But you have a choice. When you come a challenge, you either deal with it head on or you don't. But if you don't, it'll keep reoccurring. So those that are still struggling, that's when I actually have that coaching conversation about their past careers and everything. And you'll find the habits that they won't take that challenge on and learn from it, because I'm a firm believer challenges come to you for a reason. You've got to learn something, and they'll keep coming to you until you learn it. And then you can go to new. And I went through that myself in my own business. I was, going, oh, things will get better, things will get better. But not until I got out of my own way did the business start thriving. So I dealt with something that was going on in my own life. And then all of a sudden, my business started thriving and thriving and thriving. And then I started becoming a lot more open, a lot more networking. And when you network, you will find, and it took me a few years in business to realize that you meet amazing people that are willing to talk to you. And I hit a struggle in my business where I hired someone and I had to fire them. And I'd never done it before. And I picked up the phone and I rang someone. They were like going, we'll meet for coffee tomorrow morning. We'll go through all this. This is the extraordinary thing about business owners. It doesn't matter what country or in what business or what industry. They're all there to help each other, give each other advice. It is extraordinary. That is the world that I walked into that I wasn't prepared for, which was amazing. And I think the success of my past business was because of that, because of listening to my staff, because of listening to my clients and getting out networking and talking to others, on top of reading and listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But it's really being opened. You have to be opened about things. And no matter how wonderful people say their businesses are, there's always a challenge there that they're facing, whether you like it or not. But the difference I find with the two people is the ones that are still struggling are the ones that are not facing the challenge that they need to learn from.
Oh, I like that. And I actually blame Hollywood, Sarah, for that. Have you ever watched in the Western sort of movies, there's this Lone Ranger. He comes riding into the town all by himself and then walks into a saloon and then he orders a whiskey and looks around and there's all the people from the town. They're already around him and they want to fight him because they don't know who he is and they want to start a fight. And then all of a sudden he does his thing and then he eliminates every one of them and then figures out he can't stay in that town and then he rides out, into the sunset. And I feel like every entrepreneur feels like that lone ranger that just has to do things alone. But I officially believe if you want to go far, you may go alone, but if you want to go further, you go together. So it's one thing that a lot of people are not doing. From what this sounds like, it sounds like you're literally giving people back to themselves because
you have to surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up and celebrate with you. And I experienced that once or twice and I see it with others. I love seeing business owners succeed. It is just because I know how much hard work is put into it. Like, I don't believe that there might be a small bit of luck, but I believe there's more hard work put into a successful business than just luck.
Absolutely. I mean, what do they say about luck is preparation that meets opportunity. And if all the ingredients are in the same place, it actually works out. But don't you think maybe focusing too much on purpose can actually make a business less profitable? Because then, it's like airy fairy. And how do you balance heart and head?
I think it depends on what comes towards you. So depending on the client, you have to assess it. You have to see where they are at, what are they going through. And sometimes one thing might be pulling them too far in one direction when they need to balance up again. And often you have to go, okay, so you're doing 80, 90, 100 hours a week. What are you doing that someone else can do? Oh, no one can do anything I can do. I'm like, no, let's do this for a week. Write down what you do every day as you go along in a notebook, or put it somewhere on technology, whatever you prefer. And then when you do that after a week, they're going, oh my goodness, there is a few things. And that's where slowly I get them to learn to delegate. And then the next question would be, what is it in your week that you hate doing? What do you hate doing? And I remember one gentleman says, I hate doing the payroll. And I'm like, so why are you doing it? And we have a conversation on it. And it was extraordinary. And I said, well, then why don't you outsource it to your accountant or to a payroll company so the confidentiality remains there? Because he was working so hard, he didn't even think of that. Just the simplest thing. Then to find out a week later, it used to take him a half day to do the payroll. The payroll provider has it done in an hour. So it just shows you that when you slow down and actually think of and write down what you're actually doing in the time you're saying you're working, then we started going, okay, so what can you use that half morning to? He goes, oh, I was supposed to catch up with a few people. Okay, so start building that into your time. So we're substituting it for something else that's more beneficial. So we're starting to balance it up. And then all of a sudden, when you're working less in the business and more headspace, they start getting creative. They start going, oh, this is where I wanted to take the business. Now I've got the time to do this, to take the business. And they're having conversations with other business owners. And then they're like, and then the ideas generate. And it's extraordinary because all of a sudden that particular gentleman brought in a new piece of technology. He had backlash at the start, but then when he explained why he brought in the technology, there was 100% buy-in by the team. So there's a few aspects that go on in a business owner is going, we should do this without talking to anyone, but you have to talk to them and explain to your staff. And then once you explain it, all of a sudden there's 100% buy-in, and then it goes. I did that in my own business. I brought in a piece of technology that was an absolute disaster. And then the staff going, why are you doing this? And I'll never forget, it was the most extraordinary hour-and-a-half meeting I had with my staff. And they were like giving out to me, very nicely, but they were giving out to me. And they were like going, why are you doing this? And I explained what I was doing. I said, we're onboarding people. It's taking too long. We need, it's taking up too much of our time. We need to streamline things. And then the conversation got in. And 2 staff members just said, Sarah, let it to us. We will come back to you in a week with proper technology. So I did, and I left them. And that was October 2019. So we decided to implement it in February 2020 because it'd be a quieter time for us. And then COVID happened. Oh my goodness gracious me. So 6 weeks before COVID, I had sent home all the staff. We worked remotely, was complete success, but we did not expect to lose 85% of our business in the week of lockdown. And you can imagine Ireland had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. So, but because we had the time, I didn't want to lose the staff because they were really good staff, and I had enough saved to keep us going for a while. We started implementing the technology as the 4 weeks went on. By the end of March, we were at full capacity again. We were just like, it was extraordinary. But because we brought in that technology, so something that we planned to bring in within 18 months, we got it done in 10 months. And even after COVID finished, we kept it going. And it was much easier. It was reminders. It gave me 2 days a month. So that's 24 days back in the year. But not only that, we looked at all the staff. I think it saved us about 8 months in the year between all the staff by bringing in that technology to be able to do more fun work, to do more training, upskilling. So that's when you step back and start talking to other business owners, the creativity, the guidance. We use this technology, we use that technology, this is great for this. And that's how I built the business, to the point where there was a increase in turnover of 33% year on year after that. It was just, we worked as a team. And I'm noticing more and more of the business owners are now getting either themselves and the team assessed for emotional intelligence to see how they better work and fit within the business. It's extraordinary. And I think it's wonderful that they're realizing that human beings are really, really important.
I like that. And thank you so much for taking us through that particular story. And what I really like about this is not only are you helping other businesses, you're actually a practitioner, because some, coaches will just have maybe learned a little bit about a certain theory and then they're then going out and helping people. But you're both a strategist and a mentor. Now, how do you then blend that practical and also the intuitive side of both of these requirements when you're guiding clients, because there's certain things that some people would just blatantly refuse just because they've never probably heard of it, but it comes intuitively to you.
You get curious because while you're going through the conversation, when you see their actions and their expressions and their vocabulary change, you pause. You're going, okay, what's going on in your mind? I'm really curious. What's going on in your mind? And then often a question is, what shadow is holding you back? What is it that's holding you back here? And we have that. So yes, I'm doing the consultancy, but we have to pause ever so often to find out what the feelings are. What am I after triggering by saying whatever I said, and have that conversation. Now they know, everyone that works with me, it's a safe place to talk. We're always in a safe environment to talk, and everything that's said stays in that environment. It doesn't go beyond that. So a lot of things come out, personal things that happened in the past, because it can be triggering. Going through a sale, a merger, a retirement can be triggering of something that happened in the past. And we have to talk it through, why it's affecting, and go through it that way. So it's not, we do coaching and when we do the consultancy, it's very much, it happens as you're going through the process. But you have to give yourself space. And I always tell them, have a journal with them, write down their thoughts, because something might come into their head and they write it down. And then they may have time later to sit down and going, why did I feel like that? And often when they do take time to reflect, I know people say journaling, but you can journal or you can just write down a few words that's going through your head, just to get it out of you for that moment and to come back to it later and you won't forget it. But it's having that conversations. It's truly what's driving you to sell, what's driving you to retire, what's driving you to merge, what are the real reasons behind it. Knowing that for yourself, no one else needs to know it. Knowing that for yourself helps you make those decisions and helps you prepare better for the end goal and gives you a lot of clarity of how you want your life afterwards. It's really important about that. So that's why I blend the both of them, because you can do consultancy and going, this is the way you need to do it step by step. And then they walk out the door and you may never see them again. So you have to sort of take the human into it. Yes, and I know when they say, a limited company is it's seen as a separate legal entity, like another human being. But that company is made up of human beings and emotions and past and future and present in it. And that's where you need to actually pause a moment and give that person a chance to feel the presence and whatever's going on inside them.
And I like that you've mentioned, you give people expert guidance, and also it is in a safe environment. For starters, we've already established people are afraid of accountants. You can imagine people are afraid of mentors or somebody who starts questioning them, because as an entrepreneur, you wouldn't have been asked any questions as you were going along your journey. And then if somebody starts asking you these questions, it might actually just trigger them, because they wouldn't know how to respond to that. And there's also something, Sarah, I don't know if it's prevalent there in Ireland, but there's usually a guilt or a shame around money. That so many people are just, when it comes to money, people would rather talk about sex than talk about money, and it's just really weird like that. And I don't know if it's the same with women in business, but as men, we have this, I should have figured this out already. Now, how do you help clients maybe rewrite that relationship with themselves and with money?
I feel that's bred into every single person in the world in some places. It's definitely in Ireland, male or female, you don't talk about money. I think it's starting slowly to change, if I'm being honest, but very, very slowly, about money and about costings and how's the business getting on. I do a small business mastermind where we do talk about that, but there's a confidentiality agreement signed at the start to talk about it. to talk about your figures openly, but nothing is allowed to be discussed outside of that. In the story, it's there to help each other. It's extraordinary when people do start talking about money, how much they start learning from each other with regards to what they should be spending on and not spending on, or how much it should cost and not cost. But then you realize that if you want quality, you may have to pay that extra price. And I always tell people, with the fear of money, let's talk it through. What is the fear of money? And often it's, well, we came from a very poor family, we don't want to spend. And often there's a lot of money in the bank account and they have a fear of spending. No, because something could happen. And I had one particular client, if the balance went below 150,000 euros, she went into crisis. Not only her, but her male business partner went into crisis. It was we just couldn't get over it. Like, if once they hit that number, they wouldn't even take a salary for that month so they can bring it back up again. They had that. And so I had to sit down and have a conversation with both of them together. And both of them came from underprivileged families that barely met it where they are. So I started, and then I realized they didn't understand how to read a profit and loss, a balance sheet, each debtors and creditors, and we started putting in processes, because what they were deciding to do was possibly close down the business because they felt stressed over it. So we went through it on everything from starting with a client to getting the work done to getting payments. We start putting processes in there, but also explaining how to read a profit and loss, a balance sheet, how to put out the statements, have two payments, payment runs a month, have a separate bank account to pay the taxes and always save in the taxes. And little things that would calm their nerves. And now they're actually successful. They've actually brought two other staff members on as two other directors who hopefully they will retire and they'll buy them out. So there is panic there, but if they're comfortable enough to have that conversation, and sometimes you have to be very gentle and be curious, the information comes out and you're going, well, I can help you solve this, but we have to work together as a team. And everything is teamwork. Everything is teamwork, and put accountability in there. So we staged it over a year on what we were going to do. And I said to them, we're not going to say bang on the 25th of March, this has to be done. It could be done either way. It might be a bit late because of business. It could be a bit early. Everything is flexible. And I always used to say everything is fixable as well. Everything is through communication.
I like that, because so many people, are really hard on themselves. Like you're absolutely right. That it's like a thermostat, in the household. If the money just goes below that, it kicks in and it overheats. And then before you know it, they could actually be ruining themselves, their health, and maybe the relationships that they have around there, and I think information changes situations, because that piece of information that you gave them completely just, changed the paradigm that they have. But you know what? I know a lot of people, they don't want to hear from lawyers or accountants because they just think it's those professions that are going to expose them. So what is it about your industry, say maybe accounting or business strategy, that people often misunderstand or get completely wrong, and they think, you know what, it'll figure itself out, we don't need to have people like that around?
They have that attitude to a certain point, and then they realize, I need to have someone to guide me.
All right.
And I'm trying to explain to them that you don't have to hire a full-time accountant or a full-time lawyer or a full-time HR person. You just need to make a decision. What do I need to know? When do I need to know it? And how often do I need to meet these people? So one particular client, they meet the accountant every quarter, and they have an agenda of what they want to discuss or what they don't understand. Can you please explain it to me? So often when I go out networking and when I hear that going, I hate going to the accountant, and I always ask the question, why? Because there's always bad news. And then I start having the conversation with them, and I try and explain to them, figure out what information do you need for your business? What is it that's important that you find important and they'll say, well, I'd like to know if I'm like making money. Going, okay, so pick a month and going in and bring in your accounts, use a system. I always try and get everyone to use an accountant's package and go, explain to me what I need to know about sales. or explain to me why my debtors are so big, and ask the questions. Accountants are always willing to educate you when you're ready, but it's only when you're ready, because all accountants are out there trying to explain this is your responsibility, you have to do this. But sometimes you have to take a step back and go, okay, let's hit this target. What's your spend? This is what you need to look out for. But the owner of the business also needs to know what information makes me comfortable. What knowledge do I need to make decisions? So some people will, one gentleman always looked at the bank account. Always looked at the bank account. Went off and bought a piece of machinery worth 750,000. Not all the money was in the bank account. Someone had forgotten to explain to him that wages have to be paid, the tax bill has to be paid, the creditors have to be paid, and then you've got, the rest of the money to hold the business together for the next couple of months. So this was a very successful businessman, and he needed a machinery, and he just saw that. So I had to explain to him that you need to have three different, for his mentality, he needed three different bank accounts. And we explained why: the current account, the tax account, and the savings account, so you can buy whatever equipment you want. But that got overcame by getting a loan out and building up the business. So it's really, where are they looking? Are they looking at the bank account, or are they actually looking at the profit and loss and the balance sheet? And that's important. But it's education. It really is education. If you want to build your business, it's going into the account and going, I don't know what questions to ask you, but I need to run this business better.
I think people just need clarity, and that's the reason why, when you're driving, the windshield is way bigger than the rearview mirror, because you need to see clearly where you're going, and that's when you can actually invest your time, your money, and your effort into something that is actually tangible. Now, finally, Sarah, where can people find you, or maybe connect with you and actually start working on maybe creating more financial peace and purpose in their own business?
Well, I'm only on LinkedIn. Actually, I think I'm on Instagram as well, but not mainly LinkedIn, and my website, sarahdaly.com. I was looking to get that.
I'll make sure
that was.
Okay, right. So definitely make sure that we'll put all those links in the show notes, and so that people can find their way and get to see what else it is that you're working on, etc. Now, when we started with you in high school, and we've gone through your businesses and everything else. But now that you've brought us into your world, what's next? What are you working on that we can also be excited about, that, we can look out for in the future?
I'm hoping to build more in the successful partnership area, helping more businesses, but also giving the option of doing masterminds on a monthly basis for people, depending on which step their process they've decided to take, or the future they decide to take. That's where I'm hoping to take more, so I can help more people rather than one at a time, that there's a few people at the same time. And to be honest with you, the accountability masterminds are very small. I keep the numbers around 6 to 8, and that's it. So they create their own community and help as well at the same time. Yeah, that's the future of this. I still do one-to-ones, but time is limited, as they'd say. And yeah, so I'd still like to reach a bigger audience and possibly speak a bit more about, merging and blending the coaching and the consultancy, and go that way.
Oh, absolutely. And I really like how you're doing it, because not only have you obviously, because I obviously believe in life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute, you know what I mean? So you've obviously lived the life, and you've learned what needs to be done. Now you're just contributing to others so that they can actually stop spinning and start moving forward with purpose. Because can you imagine how many businesses are just entangled in their own mess, and it only takes a moment for somebody who knows what they're doing to just untangle it and say, here, you go back and put down that handbrake, and you can speed up on the highway. So thank you so much, first of all, for the work that you're doing, but also for sharing your journey with us on the Online Prosperity Show today.
Well, Prosper, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Wow, what a powerful conversation. If you've ever felt maybe intimidated by your numbers, I was busy trying to calculate, how much how how much we need for certain things, or maybe you're disconnected from your purpose. I think Sarah just showed us that clarity isn't found in spreadsheets. It's really found in alignment. And if this episode just resonated with you, I encourage you to obviously maybe rewatch this or share it with a friend or a business owner who's just ready to take control of their finances with absolute confidence and a calm. And don't forget, while you're at it, to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show so you never miss out on ideas, insights, and transformations that can actually help you live a happier and more prosperous life. Until next time, I just encourage you to take that one small step towards clarity, because prosperity starts with purpose. Bye for now.